FBI investigation of Emailgate was a sham. That is the title of your last piece on Observer.com. I agree 100%, but please make the case for all listening. This whole thing was just a totally fixed joke from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm afraid so, Buck. I mean, I and a lot of people have been suspecting for months there's this more than year-long investigation by the FBI of Hillary Clinton. This email shenanigans the Secretary of State has kind of rolled along. There have been a lot of doubts about the sincerity of Director James Comey and the Bureau about this investigation. I think we know that a lot of good Americans in the FBI would have liked to have taken this investigation forward, but it's pretty clear the fix was in from a very high level. Why do I say that? Well, there have been anomalies all along. Some of the worst compromises of classified intelligence in Emailgate, which I've written about extensively, got a pass in the Bureau in their investigation. We can now say with certainty based on the documents that have been released. And now it turns out that absolutely key players in Emailgate have been given immunity. This includes Cheryl Mills, who's a longtime Clinton flunky hanger-on, who was chief of staff of the State Department. She herself got an immunity deal from the Department of Justice in this, notwithstanding the fact that she was acting as Hillary's lawyer and was actually with Hillary during her FBI deposition several months ago, acting as her lawyer. How is that remotely possible? How does this happen in a developed country that someone who was deeply involved in Emailgate, who was involved in the destruction of tens of thousands of emails that were under subpoena, gets immunity, and then shows up as Miss Clinton's personal attorney during her FBI interrogation? None of this makes any sense to me with the background in the intelligence community that I have. How about you? Does this make any sense to you, Buck?
Oh, no. If I was sitting down with you, John, it actually makes a lot of sense if we were sitting down and our objective was to make sure that nothing could possibly come out of the investigation other than, Hillary probably showed some bad judgment here. If we were trying to structure it so that it was literally, because as I've explained to people, a lot of times it's the process crimes that get people, meaning it's, lying to investigators, destruction of evidence. It's the stuff that comes after the acts themselves that jam people up during a long FBI investigation. So you hand out immunity to everybody and you've already made the decision not to prosecute. Now you're home free.
Correct, and that is exactly what's happened here. And yet again, the Clintons have shown that there are two sets of laws, one for the rest of the 300-odd million, the rest of us in America, and one for them and their close friends, including Cheryl Mills. I mean, Cheryl Mills, remember, to engage in ancient history, Cheryl Mills was a key obstructionist in the Whitewater investigation of literally 2 decades ago, and one of the people investigating her on behalf of the U.S. Senate was none other than James Comey, who discovered that Cheryl Mills had almost certainly destroyed documents and obstructed the investigation. And the price she paid for that was getting promoted.
And you know how I knew, by the way, and I've been saying this in radio for a while, that there was going to be a problem here, and I had said there was a 99% chance. You and I have talked about this a lot, and I know you agreed that there's no way there's going to be charges against Hillary. I thought maybe at some point they might do some sort of somebody might have to take a plea, misdemeanor, mishandling a classified, no jail time, something like that, just to sort of throw the public a bone on this. But no, they gave immunity out. That I was wrong on that one. But you knew there was a problem when the media were just all of a sudden it became this conventional wisdom. James Comey is the most ethical, the most diligent public servant, and it's like no one even knows. No one talks about bureaucrats this way. Nobody.
That's right. And I think the Clintons are kind of off their game, too. I mean, the arrogance of long extended power has gotten to them. I mean, there was a time back in the 90s when they knew how to find someone to take a dive. The Webb Hubble, who will go to tennis prison for a little while, and by doing so takes the rap and makes the scandal effectively go away as a political issue. Frankly, the Clintons would have been better served to do that here, because now we're less than 2 months from the election, 6 weeks barely, and Emailgate is still front page news. No, she's not getting prosecuted. No one's going to get prosecuted here, nor were they ever going to. But as a political matter, it remains very much alive. And I think that obviously is the problem that Hillary faces right now. Anytime we're talking about Emailgate is not good for her.
Yeah, I am still hearing from people both from inside of the dark world and outside of the dark world. I mean, I'm hearing from people that there's just there are the rumors out there that people say, what happens if somehow one of these foreign governments maybe got their hands on some of the Hillary emails? Because to this point, there's all this redacted stuff. We can't actually see how bad the stuff was that Hillary was sending over this server. If a foreign government, theoretically, John, we're speaking in the realm of theory here, but I've been hearing this from people that this is a theory that's out there that lots of people are kind of going, If a foreign government got the full spectrum of the emails and was even able to just share a few of them in October wholesale, put them out on the internet so that the government couldn't redact them, so we would both know that a foreign power had access to all of this stuff, and we'd see the full depth of the damage that would have incurred, I think that's an election game changer.
It certainly is. I think there's a reason that Julian Assange, from his Ecuadorian embassy holdout in London, has been smirking and dropping hints about an October surprise. Look, it's no secret that that competent intelligence services, like the Russians, like the Chinese, would have had no trouble getting into Hillary's unclassified, unsecured personal email, which in fact had thousands of classified documents on it. And if, as you said, someone had the full spectrum here, including stuff that has since been destroyed under subpoena, you would know an enormous amount about how the Clinton organization functioned. And it's stuff that would be of great interest to any adversary intelligence service.
Well, and also we would see what was redacted, right? Because I think one of the one of the big issues here is that we take Hillary's word. Oh, this is just, it was minor stuff. I've heard from some other journalists out there that it wasn't minor stuff, actually, that she was putting in these emails.
It was absolutely not minor stuff. She was running her entire corrupt enterprise, pay for play with Bill through her ClintonMail.com email system. Anyone who has that knows where the bodies are buried figuratively and hopefully not literally. And the blackmail potential here is huge. I mean, I think that the Democrats have to be ready for a major drop in October as a political game changer. And if it's the Russians, and there's every reason to think it is, since WikiLeaks is now functioning as a surrogate for Russian intelligence, there may even be doctored emails. That's expected. And if they fake things and make it worse than the already bad reality, no one's going to have time to check these things before the election. This could be, as you said, this really could be a game changer. I think we have to be ready for it.
John, I wanted to ask you something because earlier in the week I was at a dinner and I sat next to a very nice, very well-intentioned Democrat, and I was just trying to enjoy my steak. But the guy says to me, he goes, you Republicans, you're so hard on Snowden. I think of him as a patriot, and if I, as conservatives do, if I believe so much in the Constitution and due process, I feel like exposing domestic spying should be something that gets you a Nobel Peace Prize, not a prison sentence. He said something like that. And I'm like, can I just pour Bernays on everything and can you just leave me alone? But, I want to know what's the Schindler? You're at dinner next to somebody who says that to you. What's sort of just the 30 to 60 second Schindler soundbite on Snowden should get the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, yeah. Well, look, I mean, if all that Snowden had given to the press to be compromised was information about domestic surveillance by NSA or anyone else, I think that would be a valid point. However, the documented reality proven by Congress is that was maybe 2% of the sum total, and that's being kind, of what Snowden released to the public, and God knows who else. The overwhelming 98+% majority of what he gave involved legitimate foreign intelligence collection by NSA, by other U.S. government intelligence agencies, and by our closest allies. It is a complete and total lie that Snowden's main objective here was protecting the civil liberties of Americans. That is like saying the moon is made of cheese. It's just known not to be true. And anyone who believes it now is like someone who believes in unicorns. I mean, it's a free country. You're free to do that, but we're also just going to have to make fun of you.
Yeah, well, this is what I said to him. I went immediately to look, man. There's no constitutional protection for a collection platform in a foreign country. Everyone's spying on everybody, and the Chinese, the Russians, you name it, are not worried about the NSA getting into something and then coming in, knocking down their door and imprisoning their whole family. That's why we have constitutional protections here, not over there. It's a completely different ballgame. But so, yeah, anyway, I wanted your take. I said that. I was like, oh, man, it's a shame. It's a shame Schindler's not here because I would just hand it off to you and I would have enjoyed my steak.
I would have thrown the Bernays personally, but you're a nicer guy than I am, so, good for you.
Certainly one way to go. I also want to ask you about, because there's a lot going on in the world of NatSec right now, and some of it's getting very scant attention. This mall shooting suspect, what do we know about him and what happened? The media totally, this was, you have a mass shooting, Washington State, and very little attention paid. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, this didn't work with what I call the narrative. We had a terrible mall shooting that killed 5 innocent Americans tail end of last week north of Seattle. The shooter, who the media told us was probably Hispanic, of course was not. His name is Arjan Çetin. He's a 20-year-old Turkish immigrant, a very disturbed young man. I think his motivation is not yet clear. We can't rule terrorism out, but we can't definitively rule it in yet. We're very early. He has a criminal record of some domestic violence, some drinking problems. He had guns taken away from him, of course. As you know, gun laws stop people from getting guns, right? No, it didn't. And he killed 5 people. There are hints of a little bit of jihadism, but we just don't know yet. This happens over and over again, where individuals have a mix of motivations. They're psychologically disturbed, and they grasp on ideologies that validate their murderous fantasies. Was this guy ISIS? No, almost certainly not. But radical Islam may have been one of the motivating factors here. But as you know, the mainstream media is at great pains to play any of this down. The guy could have been, putting all kinds of crazy jihadist stuff online. Media might not tell you that. There are startling similarities. I have to highlight another case that went down the memory hole. February 2007, Trolley Square, a mall in Salt Lake City, Utah, was shot up by an 18-year-old Bosnian Muslim immigrant, Suleiman Talovic, who killed 5 people and wounded 4 more. He would have killed a lot more, but there happened to be an off-duty police officer at the mall who shot our spree killer. Talovic's motivation was really complicated. He was psychologically disturbed. There was a bit of radical Islam. There was a little bit of just, he's crazy. But I will tell you, the FBI determined this had nothing to do with domestic terrorism and just couldn't. This was not jihadism. Well, the real answer is it's really too complicated to say. And I think that the case of Arjan Çetin, we got him alive, so he will be debriefed extensively, interviewed extensively. But this is probably going to be a mishmash of motivations, both personal and ideological, that the mainstream media and certainly the Obama administration will never allow had anything to do with jihadism. That's the reality that we're living in now.
John, can we expect you to be tweeting up a storm tonight during the debate, especially during the NatSec portions?
You know I will. I'll be all over it just for you, Buck. You know
There we go. The team is excited. All right, everybody. John Schindler, read his latest on Observer.com and look for his tweet.